Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says Pakistan will not become party to any conflict. Addressing the World Economic Forum in Davos, the Prime Minister said Pakistan is trying to diffuse tensions between the US and Iran. Speaking at the 50th session of the Economic World Forum in Davos, Prime Minister Imran Khan has reiterated his country's commitment to peace in the region. Prime Minister Imran Khan said Pakistan has suffered a lot due to war in Afghanistan.
The US in Afghanistan, 18, 19 years of this war and what, $1 trillion down the drain. So I do not think this is a way to resolve issues. And the worst thing that could happen is if there's a conflict between Iran and the US and its allies, it'll be a disaster. It'll be a disaster for us. Pakistan will be a disaster. It'll be a disaster for the developing world.
The Prime Minister said economic growth is not possible without stability and peace. He said his government is trying to bring investment in Pakistan.
We need peace in Afghanistan and stability. Whatever terrorism now comes into Pakistan every now and then is from Afghanistan, and that's why this peace process in Afghanistan is very important. The quicker Afghanistan settles this peace and stability, it's not just only good for Pakistan from the terrorism point of view.
Khan said Pakistan is vulnerable to climate change and has taken steps to tackle the issue.
We appealed to the people. We involved women in the mountainous areas to grow nurseries. And it became one of the most successful campaigns in our country's history of forestation. So we planted 1 billion trees.
Earlier, speaking to the international media there, Khan says there is currently no chance of an all-out conflict between India and Pakistan, but warned that India might attempt to raise tensions at the line of control to divert attention from its domestic chaos. Khan said the US and the UN must act to prevent tensions between the two countries from reaching a point of no return. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has urged the UK to play its role for the peaceful resolution of the Kashmir dispute. The Foreign Minister briefed the British Foreign Secretary on Pakistan's role in Afghan peace process. Qureshi was speaking to British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab over the phone. Raab appreciated Pakistan's efforts to diffuse tensions in the Middle East. Qureshi stressed on the importance of de-escalation and restraint in the Gulf region. Qureshi also invited Foreign Secretary Raab to visit Pakistan at his earliest convenience. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says Islamabad's efforts for the resumption of talks between the US and the Taliban would lead to an Afghan peace deal. He was earlier exclusively talking to Indus News. Qureshi said Pakistan has also been counseling to stop violent attacks.
Pakistan has facilitated the process. All expectations of Pakistan we were able to meet. We were asked to convince the Taliban to come to the negotiating table. We were able to convince them, and they're on the negotiating table. Then it was expected that the delegation so constituted should be authoritative enough. Now everybody recognizes that the delegation that was constituted to talk to them was authoritative and to take decisions. The expectation was to get the 2 hostages released. Pakistan successfully negotiated the release of those 2 hostages. We've also been counseling the Taliban for a reduction in violence, and they have now nodded positively that they are willing to reduce violence. Hopefully, Pakistan expects that will lead to an agreement leading to reduction in violence.
He said Prime Minister Imran Khan discussed the grim human rights situation in Indian-occupied Kashmir with US President Donald Trump.
The Prime Minister shared with him his concern vis-a-vis the situation in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The situation was never good, but it has considerably deteriorated since the 5th of August. They were able to discuss the continuous lockdown. Now entered its 6th month. The human rights violations that are taking place there, how the ordinary citizen is being treated, how the Indians are reacting to the Citizen Amendment Act and the NRC and the protests all over India, the slump in the Indian economy, the slowdown in the Indian economy, and all these three factors, the situation in Indian-occupied Kashmir, they could undertake a false flag operation in Jammu and Kashmir and blame Pakistan for it. That is a serious concern, and the Prime Minister shared that with President Trump.
Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has met with US President Donald Trump on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. The two presidents discussed the security situation in Afghanistan. The presidential spokeswoman said the two leaders had appeared on the peace process in Afghanistan and bilateral talks in Bagram. The meeting follows the Taliban's announcement of a total ceasefire upon signing a deal with the US. Washington and Taliban are currently holding a fresh round of talks in Qatar's capital city of Doha. US President Donald Trump has called the impeachment trial against him a hoax. Speaking before leaving the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump says it is up to the US Senate how it will proceed with the trial. The US President defended his July phone call with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that led to the impeachment trial. He said the story surrounding the phone call is phony and concocted, but he remained confident about a victory over the Democrats, but said the trial was very bad for the US. He also said the WTO and European Union had been unfair and abusive in trade with the US. He said the EU was more difficult to do business with than China. He said progress was being made on a new trade deal with Europe, but didn't mention any date for the announcement of the deal. The US president also said he plans on expanding the US travel ban, but failed to mention which countries would be added to that list. Moving on, the US says China's secrecy around its growing nuclear stockpiles is a serious threat to strategic stability. US Disarmament Ambassador Robert Wood said China's atomic stocks will double over the next decade. Wood urged Beijing to join trilateral nuclear arms talks with Washington and Moscow. He said the US had discussed the potential talks in a security meeting with Russia last week. Wood said it's imperative for the global security that the Chinese come to the negotiating table. Earlier, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov confirmed Moscow will take part in the trilateral talks. But he said Russia will not force China to change its current position. Speaking at Davos, Chief Executive Carrie Lam has announced the formation of an independent committee to study the situation in Hong Kong. She appealed to pro-democracy protesters not to destroy the city.
Lam said Chinese President Xi Jinping remains committed to Hong Kong's special status. She asserted that nothing is more important than maintaining law and order in the city. The chief executive said Hong Kong has several crises and it's a job to contain them. She added that it was important to let the media cover the protests independently. She also declared she wouldn't give in to protesters' demands as that would undermine Hong Kong.
President Hassan Rouhani says Iran will never seek nuclear weapons with or without a deal. In a statement, the president called on the European powers to avoid Washington's mistake of violating the 2015 nuclear deal. He said the European powers will be responsible for the consequences of violating the pact. Tensions increased between the United States and Iran in 2018 when Washington withdrew from the nuclear accord and imposed sanctions on Tehran. In response, Iran rolled back on its commitments to the nuclear deal but said it could reverse its steps away from compliance if other signatories to the deal fulfilled their obligations. Turkey says Libyan warlord Khalifa Haftar is the only obstacle to peace deal in North African country. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu defended Ankara's cooperation with Moscow.
Çavuşoğlu said Ankara is working with Russia in both Syria and Libya. He said Moscow was a key actor and attempts to find progress with Europe had failed. Turkey backs the UN-recognized Government of National Accord of Fayez al-Sarraj based in Tripoli, while analysts see Moscow as a supporter of the eastern-based Haftar, whose forces launched a bid to seize Tripoli last April. Turkey has sent troops to Libya in a deployment that has disturbed its Western allies. But Çavuşoğlu insisted they were only limited in numbers and not there to fight.
NATO Chief Jens Stoltenberg says Turkey is crucial in the fight against ISIS. Speaking at the EU Parliament, Stoltenberg said Ankara has suffered more terrorist attacks than any other NATO ally. He said Turkey is the only ally directly involved in the conflict since it borders Syria and Iraq. Acknowledging Ankara's role, Stoltenberg said the progress and achievements made by NATO in the fight would not have been possible without Turkey. Stoltenberg said NATO is also extending support to Operation Sophia in the Mediterranean to crack down on the refugee smuggling routes. Welcome back. Lebanon's new government has held its first meeting a day after it was formed following a 3-month political vacuum. Prime Minister Hassan Diab and the ministers held the first meeting at the presidential palace in Beirut. He described the country's economic situation as catastrophic. Diab vowed to meet the demands from the street, but demonstrators were unconvinced and scuffled with police overnight. President Michel Aoun said the new government must tackle the economic woes, win back international confidence and gain the trust of the Lebanese. The new cabinet is made up of over 20 ministers, with mostly the technocrats. Iraqi Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi says firing rockets at the US Embassy in Baghdad is unacceptable, regardless of the intentions. In a statement, Mahdi decried the authorities who allow attacks at the American Embassy in Iraq. Prime Minister said the attacks are incorrect and painful. Yesterday, 3 rockets landed near the US Embassy in the Green Zone without causing casualties. No group has so far claimed the responsibility for the attack that came. Tensions rose between the US and Iran. Israeli troops have shot dead 3 Palestinians near the Gaza border. According to reports, Gaza police say the civilians had no link to any militant group, but the Israeli army said the men were suspected militants as they tried to enter Israel under the cover of stormy weather. It claimed the Palestinians threw an explosive at them. The fatalities are the first in cross-border fighting since last November, when a 2-day surge in violence left 34 Palestinians dead. According to the UN, Israeli forces killed over 100 Palestinians in Gaza last year and 24 in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. Greece's parliament has elected a High Court Judge Katerina Sakellaropoulou as the country's first female president.
The ruling Conservative Party nominee Sakellaropoulou got 261 votes in the 300-seat parliament. The new president has expertise in environmental and constitutional law. Following the vote, Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said the appointment of Sakellaropoulou opened a new era for the country. He said the vote showed that there could be unity among the parties on big issues. The new president will take oath in March. Greece has a historically low level of female representation in high-level politics.
In Greece, thousands of residents have taken to the streets in the Greek islands against the government's handling of the migrants arriving from Turkey. Protesters gathered on the streets of Lesbos, Samos and Chios Islands, demanding the immediate removal of asylum seekers. Rallying in central squares, the demonstrators shut down shops and public services. The largest migrants camp on Lesbos Island hosts nearly 20,000 asylum seekers. About 3,000 protesters had gathered in Lesbos capital, while another 1,500 demonstrators came out in Samos town. The UN Refugee Agency recorded over 55,000 arrivals by sea and more than 14,000 through the land border with Turkey. The death toll from the coronavirus in China has risen to 17, with around 470 confirmed cases of the infection. Meanwhile, cases have also been detected in several other countries, including Thailand, the US, and Japan.
The coronavirus outbreak, which originated in Wuhan, comes during the Lunar New Year, which is peak travel season in China. It has now spread to population centers around the country, including Shanghai, Beijing, Macau, and Hong Kong. The World Health Organization has begun an emergency meeting to rule if the virus is a global health emergency. There are fears this epidemic could be a repeat of the 2002 SARS outbreak, which killed nearly 200 people. US President Donald Trump has said the Center for Disease Control has a good containment plan for the virus. Meanwhile, Pakistan has also issued a health advisory to health staff at border posts.
The House of Lords has approved Boris Johnson's Brexit bill, but not before making changes to the legislation. It voted in favour of 5 amendments over 2 days of debate, leading the new government to its first parliamentary defeat.
The upper chamber voted in favor of a move to protect the rights of European Union citizens in Britain after Brexit. The changes included backing the Dubs Amendment to protect the rights of refugee children. The PM office said they were disappointed by the move, but planned to overturn them when the bill returned to the Commons. The amendments are expected to be voted down by MPs, likely due to the Conservative strong majority in the House. This means the bill will bounce back between the two houses until both sides agree on the wording. The EU withdrawal bill ensures UK leaves the European Union on January 31st with a deal.
Welcome back. 36 people are killed in a reported terrorist attack on 2 markets in Sanmatenga province of Burkina Faso. The government says 3 others were wounded after the militants raided Ngarago and Olamu villages. It said armed militants killed 32 civilians when they attacked and burned the market in Ngarago village. Later, they killed 4 more people in Olamu village. Hundreds of people have fled the area and taken refuge in the nearby city of Kaya. The president has called for 2 days of national mourning. It is not yet clear who is responsible for the attack. British rock star Ozzy Osbourne has revealed he has a Parkinson's disease. Last year, the musician, who is famous for the heavy metal band Black Sabbath, postponed a world tour due to health issues. In a TV interview, the 71-year-old rock star told that he received the diagnosis in February 2019 after he fell at home and had to have a neck surgery. The musician says he has been working to recover to be able to perform in front of the fans again. Osbourne said he is now on medication for Parkinson's and nerve pain.
I can die twice now. I've died once or twice before, but I mean, it's been the story of my life. When I came off the quad bike a few years ago, my heart stopped twice on the way to the hospital. I must have just like a cat 7 lives. I hope so. It's been a great journey this year. This year has been amazing for us.
At the World Economic Forum in Davos, a Swedish activist, Greta Thunberg, has criticized the world leaders' inaction over climate change, calling their promises empty words. Elsewhere at Davos, US President Donald Trump urged the audience to reject the climate prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse.
During her speech in Davos, the teen activist warned that net zero carbon emissions is not enough. Much more needs to be done. Thunberg said world leaders are running out of time to tackle the climate emergency. She added, nothing has been done to tackle the emergency crisis as the world is still on fire.
My generation will not give up without a fight. The facts are clear, but they are still too uncomfortable for you to address. You just leave it because you think it's too depressing and people will give up. But people will not give up. You are the ones who are giving up.
US President Donald Trump touted the success of the US economy in Davos. Trump largely shied away from environmental issues, which are the top priority of the agenda at the gathering. But he did say that the United States will join an initiative to plant 1 trillion trees. But the United States president spent several minutes of his speech hailing economic importance of the oil and gas industries.
Fear and doubt is not a good thought process, because this is a time for tremendous hope and joy and optimism and action. But to embrace the possibilities of tomorrow, we must reject the perennial prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse.
The World Economic Forum's annual summit at Davos runs from Tuesday to Friday this week.
A Dutch startup company is trying to fight air pollution with a cutting-edge air pollution mask. The company claims the new mask will be able to detect dust particles, alert users to real-time pollution levels. What about the smart masks in this report?
The World Health Organization says 4.6 million people die each year from causes directly attributable to air pollution. The Dutch company called AirBlus Plus has come up with an advanced air pollution mask to combat the problem. The smart mask features an inside fan system for filtration and inhalation, and LED lights to alert users about the high pollution levels. The mask will eventually then map out a route with least polluted air levels.
Our goal is one day to be able to deliver enough data to have a reliable pollution map. And when you want to go from A to B, you don't necessarily only go for the shortest or the fastest way, you always go for the less polluted way.
The company intends to target markets in highly polluted cities in Asia, the Middle East, and in California, while wildfires have blanketed the state in smoke, causing air quality to drop tremendously.
We're very, very excited to have a product that is not going to be like any other mask that you're going to drop after 5 minutes and become just another gadget. We want to be the solution for mass adoption, because the comfort is key for prolonged hours, and you're happy of the user experience and you're happy to repeat it the next day. Okay.
The company plans to launch a Kickstarter in summer 2020.
A 17-year-old Indian girl has retained her crown as the teen with the world's longest hair. It has been more than a decade since she stopped getting her dresses cut following a bad experience at a salon. Details in this report.
Neelanshi Patel, from the small town of Mudasa in Gujarat state, remains a cut above the rest. She has broken her own Guinness World Record for the longest hair.
I set the Guinness Book of World Records in longest hair on teenagers in 2018. At that time, my hair length is 170.5 centimeter, and I again broke my own record and I set the record of hair length 190 centimeters.
She is nicknamed Rapunzel by her friends and schoolmates after the long flowing hair of the princess in the Brothers Grimm fairy tale. Her proud father said his only child's locks had turned her from a local celebrity into an international one.
My mom always helps me for growing me the hair, and she never feels difficulty about that. In fact, it's her dream that I can Guinness World Records title. And also my father always helps me and always supports me for growing me the hair.
Patel has to wear high-heeled shoes if she does not want her hair to touch the ground. Apart from that, the only time she has significant trouble is while swimming.
Wall Street stocks have rebounded from the previous session's losses after the release of a strong quarterly results from the IBM and Tesla. Tesla shares surged about $100 billion in the market capitalization. Nasdaq Composite Index is trading nearly 1% higher. IBM shares climbed over 4% on the back of quarterly numbers. The indices of S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Average also landed in positive territory. Semiconductor and airline stocks also hit an all-time high. South Korea's annual economic growth for 2019 has hit the lowest level since the financial crisis in 2009. Seoul's central bank says the GDP expanded only 2% annually amid sagging exports and global trade tensions. The bank said a net government contribution to growth came to 1.5%, the biggest portion since a decade. But it said the government stimulus helped the economy post its fastest fourth quarter growth in more than 2 years. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.news.